Hello everybody, my name is Leigh. Welcome back to another video. This month I read a total of 13 books, so let's just jump into it. The first book that I read this month was Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. This is the second book in the Six of Crows duology, and it was really good, I have to say. This was part of my kind of obsession with the creatureverse. The only thing that I wasn't really sure of in this one, well, I think that it's on the whole duology actually, that I don't feel like the setting is as good as in the first books, like in the Grisha trilogy. I don't know, in the Grisha trilogy I really felt that, Russian-inspired kingdom, but in here was just like, I don't know, like a random medieval setting, nothing else. But yeah, that's the basically only thing that I wasn't really sold on. But I love Cass, I love Jasper, and I love that the ending wasn't just like, oh, look at us all happy. And that was really a strong point for me. So I gave this one 5 stars. Basically, in the Six of Crows duology, we follow this group of kind of thieves, in all this 13 Ocean's 13 type of thing. Well, they try to pull up this great heist, and you should read this, quite good actually. I have to say that I enjoyed the Grisha trilogy a little bit more. Like, level of enjoyment, if that makes any sense. The next book that I read this month was The Provenance Fire by Brian Staveley. This is the second book in the Chronicles of the Unnamed Throne. This book was phenomenal, I have to say it, because that ending was everything. I really enjoyed the first one when I read it, but I wasn't quite sure about how I was feeling about the whole series, but dude, this one was so good. Brian Staveley is really good at endings. I mean, it was so good. The only thing that I didn't enjoy was that my favorite character from the first one took kind of a turn in this one, and I didn't enjoy her as much. But I'm good with that because I loved Caden in this one, so it's completely fine. I gave this one also 5 stars. In this series, we basically have this realm. The emperor just died, and we follow his 3 sons. One is a warrior, one is the heir to the throne, and the other one was basically raised in the capital. And she basically suspects that her father was actually murdered. Look at it. The next book that I read was The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. This is part of my reread challenge, to call it something, but this is still fantastic. 5 stars. I wish that I could give it more stars, because this book represents everything that I love in books. Absolutely everything. I just really enjoyed seeing how everything came together, but from the knowing perspective. I read everything and I knew how it was going to end, but it's so good. In The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, we follow Aidan. He just wakes up in this mansion, and the only way to get out is basically to solve Evelyn Hardcastle's death. So for that, he has 7 days and 7 different hosts to wake up on every day. And that is so cool. Next we have here The Light at the Bottom of the World by London Shaw. This is the first book in the series with the same name. I like it, but I wasn't expecting something like not even 100 pages in, and it's a really short book. We have a completely change of setting. I thought that the book was going to take place on this city most of the time, but it didn't. Our main protagonist basically has a submarine, and she goes to explore, and it was just like, okay. On the other hand, the thing that I really enjoyed was the underwater mutant creatures. That was really cool. I gave this one like 3.5 out of 5 stars. I will continue with the series because I love books set on an underwater setting, so I'm definitely going to continue, but it was a little bit meh. In the light of the bottom of the world, we basically have our everyday world, but a catastrophe happened and the whole planet is underwater now. Then we follow Layla. Her father was in prison and she doesn't know why. She's trying to figure it out. Yeah, you know, conspiracy, dystopia, you know how that goes. Then we have here The Name of All Things by Jen Lyons. This is the second book in A Curse of Dragons, and I love the first book. It was one of my favorite books of last year, and this is going to be one of my favorite books for this year, no doubt. Because although the story took a turn, I thought that we were going to follow time, basically, and keep going with Kieran, but no, we follow another character, basically telling us what happened in the time that we were following Kieran. And this story has one of the best representation that I have ever seen. Basically, in this part of the world where Janelle lives, we have kind of three distinct things. One is the gender that you are born, like if your physical gender. Then is how you feel on the inside, and then is what you are attracted to. So they have this culture surrounding horses. I can't remember the word for the male horses, but basically Janelle, it's okay having her physical appearance being a woman. She has no trouble with that. But on the inside, she basically identifies herself as a male, and it has those little things like she called herself Count and not Contest, and it was great. And she tries to explain everything to Kieran, and that was so cool. I loved it. I gave this one 5 stars because it couldn't deserve less. The only thing that I was missing in this book was Kieran. He only appears in the present story, and that was kind of meh. But on the other hand, I felt that the story was less complex than in the first one, or maybe because I was already accustomed to it, but I think this one was much easier to read than the first one. In The Ruin of Kings, we follow Kieran. He's in this prison and he's telling us how he got there, but at the same time we have his jailer that is kind of this shapeshifter monster that can take people's memories, telling the same story but from another point of view, and it's fantastic. Then I also read King of Scars by Leigh. This is the first book in the Nikolai duology, and thank God that I was warned that Nikolai doesn't appear too much in this book, because I would have been so disappointed. Thanks to that, I can say that I gave this one 4 stars. Why? I really enjoyed when Nikolai was the main point of view. I really liked the ending. I saw that coming from a mile away, but that doesn't matter. It was so good. The cons that I have with this book: I don't like the ship. I don't think it's right. It could have been so much better, and I don't understand why Nina is a point of view in this book. She could have her own book. That would be totally fine. I enjoy seeing Nikolai. That's it. 4 stars out of pure enjoyment. That's it. I don't want to tell you what this one is about, because you need to read first the Grisha trilogy and then the Six of Crows duology. Yeah. The next book that I read was A Brick. This is The Shadow Rising by Robert Jordan. This is the 4th book in the Wheel of Time series, and this is one of the best books ever written. In my humble opinion, this was incredible. I mean, from the second book, I knew that the Wheel of Time was going to become its own thing and keep expanding. This book was incredible. I mean, I really enjoyed that we don't have to focus on Ran all the time, that we can follow Perrin and Matt, and they're doing its separate things. Well, not Matt in this case, but I really like that. I don't know, it's really cool. And I love Moraine's character. I think she's amazing and fantastic. And it's just like everyone is just like, oh, it's Moraine's fault. Oh, Moraine's not telling the truth. And it's just like, leave her alone. you know, do something for yourselves, damn it. But yeah, this one was so good. And I love books with kind of ghostly kind of cities, and this was so good. I refuse to keep giving summaries to the Wheel of Time. You should check out Daniel Green's channel. Sorry. Next we have here Howling Dark by Christopher Ruocchio or Ruocchio. I keep hearing people saying it like differently, so I don't know anymore. But this is the second book in the Sun Eater series. Did I say that I give The Wheel of Time 5 stars? I gave it 5 stars. I also gave this one 5 stars. What a great reading month to start the year. I feel like the first book in the series was just more like a fantasy with sci-fi elements, but this just completely hands down is sci-fi, and I loved it. There's kind of augmented people in this book. They do weird shit to their bodies, and they put in there just like electronics and stuff, and tons of aliens. There are aliens everywhere in this book, and it's so cool. But yeah, I love this one. I even think that it was so much fast-paced than the first one, and such a change, because I enjoy like kind of gladiators, but not as much as I thought. And that's the only reason why I'm not reading God's Grave yet, for example. In the first one we have tons of gladiator type style scenes, and in this one there are none, and I was so happy. But yeah, I love it. 5 stars. In the first book in this series, Empire of Silence, we basically follow Hadrian. He's telling us his life story, and we discovered on page 1 that he blew up a sun, destroying an entire solar system. Yeah, that wasn't nice. But we are basically following him since childhood, trying to figure out what happened and why he did it. And we also have these aliens constantly fighting humans for different planets. It's so cool. You should read it if you're into sci-fi or fantasy. Then I have here a self-published book. This is Inquisition by F.D. Cross. This is the second book in the Wolfgang trilogy, I think it's called. These books are so much like a guilty pleasure. I enjoy them so badly. They're like Castlevania, but in book form. I love them. I think this one was such a step up from the first one, not only in its thickness, but in the world. In the first one, we do have Wolfgang kind of traveling, finding his son, but in this one, we also have him traveling, finding his son, but he goes to these awful, sad towns that is, everything just has like this gothic, dark setting, and I love that. In every single book that it appears, it was really cool. And there are some like kind of snippets around it with that we have more than vampires, like werewolves, ghouls, and I'm so excited for that. Can we have more, please? The third book is coming out this year. If you enjoyed, you know, these ancient vampires that are evil and super cruel, and you know, this kind of trope of the vampire hunter, I think you will really enjoy this. And it's like super fast paced. It's like non-stop action all the time. The only thing that I was missing was kind of a more lore surrounding the Carnelese. They are the name of the royal vampires that we have here. I really hope that it kind of expands on the third one. I'm really excited for the next installment. In a complete wimp, I pick up The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. I keep hearing amazing things about this book, and they are so right. I mean, this book was fantastic. For being a thriller, I don't know if it is because it's been so much time since the last time I read a thriller, but I couldn't put it down. I really like one or two sittings. It was so cool, and I really love the ending. I know that not many people like the ending because it's kind of open and a little bit rushed, but I love it. It was just like in the last page, I was like, oh my god, I loved it. I gave this one 4.5 out of 5 stars. In the beginning of the book, we basically have this nanny. She's basically in prison, accused of murdering one of the childs she was taking care of, and we go from there. She's basically telling the story through letters to her wannabe lawyer, and it's so cool. It's so cool. Damn! I finally read Come Tumbling Down by Sean McGuire. This came out last month, and this is the fifth book? I think it is the fifth book in the Wayward Children series, and it was really cool. I have to say that I actually felt this one like a little bit rushed. I didn't feel that with the other ones, which is kind of weird. But I don't know. In this one we follow again Jack and Jill from the first and second book in the series, and that was so cool. And we are back in the moors. I love the moors so bad. It reminds me like to the world of Inquisition, with these dark evil scientists and dark evil vampires. That's my only complaint. I felt like it was rushed, and I'm scared. Am I gonna think the same thing about the next books in the series? Because I really enjoyed this. I don't know. In the Wayward Children series, we basically follow these children that came back from magical worlds, you know, like from Narnia and such, and they no longer know how to be in our world. So in the first book we have this kind of school for these children, but since then in every book we've been having different worlds, and we've been following different characters, and they are so cool. The different worlds are amazing. I finally read The Binding Knife by Brent Wick. This is the second book in the Lightbringer series, and I have to say that I didn't enjoy this one as much as the first one. I think that it's quite an unpopular opinion. The first half of this book I didn't care at all about anything. I think that after 400 pages my interest peaked, and I really enjoyed the last part, so I gave this one 3.75 out of 5 stars, because even though I enjoyed Gavin more in this one, the beginning was just like so meh and so bland for me. It could probably totally be me, and that's it, not the book, but meh. Although that ending was super great, and now I'm kind of excited for the third one, but we'll see. It's all actually here. In the first one we follow Gavin. He's the prism, and in this world magic is basically related to colors, and everyone can draft basically 1 or 2 colors, but the prism can draft them all. But the kind of negative thing about being able to draft all colors is that he's going to die pretty soon. So that's all I'm going to tell you. Then the last book that I read this month was the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin, and I don't understand this book. I really liked it, but I don't know if I understand anything, and that's pretty weird. We basically have this land that is constantly having this 5th season when the planet is kind of dying, and we have volcanoes and ash and earthquakes and that kind of stuff. And we also have people who are able to control these things. They have basically powers over Earth. That is so interesting. It's so cool. But I was so confused at the beginning of this book. There's a perspective in this that is told in second person, and I didn't enjoy that, but I got used to it with time. Will I continue? Yes. Did I understand everything? No. That ending was kind of a mindfuck. It was just like, oh my god. Oh my god. Like that for the last 30 pages. I give this one 4 stars. I was so confused. I really think that I would need to reread it before going into the second one, but we'll see what happens. Where do I put you? Right there. On the middle. But yeah, that's going to be all for today. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.